Tonight, about to be released, a well-known criminal set to walk out of jail. Broken water main, flooding closing Northern Lights College. And hydraulic fracking, another rancher calls out BC's energy regulator. Good evening and thank you for joining us. And we begin tonight with a criminal well known to police will be freed from jail next month. Tanner Murray has pled guilty to a number of charges and will be released near the end of March. Murray pled guilty to 10 charges, among them 2 counts of assaulting a police officer, possessing a firearm with an altered serial number, and flight from police. He also pled guilty to a number of breach of release orders. Judge Richard Blaskovich sentencing Murray to a total of 300 days in jail, and factoring in time served, Murray will be free in 24 days. He also faces a lifetime firearms ban and is prohibited from driving for the next 2 years after a drunk driving conviction. In August, a search of his home led to the seizure of illegal guns, over 1,000 rounds of ammunition, and drugs, including suspected fentanyl and heroin. Police say support gear for organized crime was also seized. In January of last year, Murray was a fugitive on the run from police, and in May of 2023, he was arrested and charged with robbery and uttering threats. Those charges were stayed by the Crown. This fall, the Fifth Estate spoke to the stepsister of Darylyn Supernant. She said on the day Darylyn disappeared, she had been really preoccupied talking to Murray on the phone all day. She also revealed that police have been asking her friends about Murray during their investigation into Darylyn's disappearance. Cheyenne Hamler also told the Fifth Estate she last saw Renee Didier on the day she went missing. According to phone records obtained by CJDC-TV News, that was on December 3rd at 6:28 p.m. Hamler said a video chat showed Renee in a hotel room with Tanner Murray and a second man, Brian Mooney. A water main break forcing the closure of Northern Lights College in Dawson Creek today. The college notifying students through social media and signage posted across the campus. The water main break happened on 116th Avenue on Thursday, and it's impacting the area between 9th and 11th Streets. The city says they are working to assess the cause. As for the college, they're working closely with the city to resolve the issue as quickly as possible. Skilled trade exams scheduled for today still went ahead. Staff were on hand to help students enter the building. A Peace Region rancher is sharing her concerns on the impact that fracking is having on the livelihood of local farmers. Shelley Wolf says she's had to dramatically reduce the size of her herds because of oil and gas activity in Doe River. And she's now calling on the BC energy regulator to update their guidelines and better support producers across the region.
They basically just telling me that they're following the regulations, and I've told them many times that they need to update the regulations because this isn't working for us farmers.
Wolf's comments come after CJDC-TV News aired a story about another Peace Region farmer calling out the energy regulator. Wolf says the disturbance from well drilling, equipment trucks, and fracking is stressing her cattle. She says with Vermilion Energy drilling nearby, it's caused cows to lose calves in the first 7 to 10 days, and the quality of bull semen is dropping. She adds, because she's just outside the notification area of the drilling, the BCER won't act, and she hasn't been contacted about any emergency response plan. Not only that, her water source is also drying up. Dugouts built to collect water from Micka Creek that is then sold to Vermilion for fracking operations. The runoff from the creek is used by farmers for their herds. However, she's now questioning the legality of a neighboring property that's blocking the creek and building a trench to sell that water to the energy company. That's in combination with record drought in the area over the past several years that's seen the quality of grass decline. She says the BCER and Agricultural Land Commission have been made aware of what's happening. The BCER notes they are committed to sustainable water use. Back in 2024, Vermilion received approval from the BCER to install water pumping infrastructure for short-term water use. The above-ground hoses and pumps will transport water from the Peace River to their operations. Well, 2 projects in Northeast BC will benefit from new provincial funding to support the forestry sector. However, it may be too little too late for those who've impacted by mill closures. Northpac Forestry will receive just over $1 million for 2 fiber supply projects. The Fort Nelson Hardware Fire Salvage is a joint partnership with the Fort Nelson First Nation. While in Fort St. John, the pulp utilization program will help boost the supply of fiber that would otherwise be burned or abandoned. The funding is being provided through the Forest Enhancement Society of British Columbia. A total of 74 fiber recovery and wildfire mitigation projects across the province will share $28 million in funding. The province says it's in an effort to create jobs and support the resource sector in the face of U.S. tariffs. Last year, 220 jobs were lost in Fort St. John when Canfor announced the closure of its mill. The company cited challenges in accessing fiber as one of the main reasons for the closure. The growing number of emergency department closures in our province took over the legislature in Victoria as the issue dominated question period. Tempers flared as the government was on the defensive and the opposition hammered them on the worsening crisis. CTV's Rob Buffum has the details.
Member, for God's sake, be quiet.
Emotions boiling over in question period.
When you're trying to access an emergency room and it's closed, that's inconvenient.
A steady stream of BC Conservatives demanding answers to the same question for their region.
Elkford's ER department in my riding has been closed for over 2 years. 2 years.
No fewer than 20 MLAs rising to flag emergency room closures in their part of the province over the past 2 years.
It's only 6 days in this past year. To the Premier, when will hospital closures stop in British Columbia?
The emergency room in Karamias has been closed evenings and weekends for 1,213 days. Why does this Premier think that this is acceptable?
The health minister rising each time, acknowledging the problem, pledging more help is coming.
I will stand up for healthcare workers each and every day.
We could have gone on with our entire caucus. 20 speakers is a record. I don't think any opposition party's ever put up that many speakers in a question period before.
We have a global shortage of healthcare workers, and that's why it's incumbent on us to do everything possible to train and recruit new doctors to our province.
This stack, printouts provided by the Conservatives of notices of hundreds of the ER closures across the province in the past couple of years, including Delta this weekend, most in rural communities like Merritt. Its mayor speaking out today too.
We've been closed for the last 3 nights out of the last 4 days. We've had closures. And the concerning one for us was Sunday night when we had a structure fire here in town and one of our firefighters needed medical assistance.
The province facing heat itself in a testy question period, putting a fine point on the scope and extent of the emergency room crisis. Robert Buffum, CTV News, Victoria.
For the third time already this year, nurses from across BC, including the Peace region, rallied in downtown Vancouver, making their demands clear ahead of contract negotiations with the province.
Frankly, nurses are the backbone of healthcare, and so we need to invest in nurses. We need to retain them because many are leaving due to the working conditions, and we have to recruit many more to this province.
Geer says the main message of the rally is to push for minimum nurse-to-patient ratios in healthcare settings across the province. The rally is part of a 2-day provincial bargaining conference organized by the BC Nurses Union ahead of the end of its contract on March the 31st. The leader of the BC Conservatives is renewing calls for a public inquiry into last fall's election. John Roustad claiming new evidence has emerged of voting irregularities in the riding of Surrey-Guildford. Roustad says Green Party candidate for that riding, Manjit Singh Sahota, swore an affidavit yesterday as part of the Conservatives' ongoing court action. In it, Sahota claims he stopped canvassing at Surrey's Argyle Lodge, which is a 25-bed mental health facility, after a caregiver told him the residents were not allowed to vote. However, 20 of them still ended up voting by mail. The Conservatives have produced sworn statements from residents denying they requested the ballots and suggested they vote under pressure.
We have been putting forward affidavits. We've shown clearly that there are problems here. Why is an Election BC wanting to delve into this further?
But what we've seen is this rise from down south in particular, that if you don't like the result, then you can just call it a fake election. You know, I hear from people all the time that we don't want to see what's happening in the US here. Well, breaking news, it's here, and John Roustad is leading that cause.
Now, how ballots got to Argyle Lodge remains unclear, as Election BC says it only sends them upon request. The Surrey-Guildford riding was a tight race, with the BC NDP won by just 22 votes, helping secure its one-seat majority government. Doug Ford and the Ontario Conservative Party have secured a third straight majority government.
This election, we ask the people for a mandate, a strong mandate that outlives and outlasts the Trump administration, a mandate to do whatever it takes to protect Ontario. Well, friends, the people have spoken. They're ready to stand up for Canada.
Well, Ford got exactly what he was hoping for by calling a snap election more than a year ahead of schedule. Ford said he needed a strong mandate from voters to deal with the threat of U.S. tariffs. That issue dominated that short campaign. It's been a while since the Canadian economy grew on a per capita basis, but that's exactly what happened in the fourth quarter of last year. New data shows the economy ended last year stronger than expected. According to Stats Canada, real gross domestic product rose 2.6% on an annualized basis, and that's well ahead of expectations. The agency says a surge in household spending ahead of the holidays provided the lift. The growth came despite slowdowns that was related to the Canada Post strike. In Washington, a shocking scene today at the White House. Donald Trump and his vice president berating Ukraine's leader in front of the world. Trump later cut short talks with Vladimir Zelensky, who was seeking American security guarantees as part of any peace deal with Russia. CTV's Jeremy Sharon reports.
It started with a quip about what he was wearing as he walked in. But when the highly anticipated meeting got underway, there was no joking around.
You have nice ocean and don't feel now, but you will feel it in the future.
You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel. We're going to feel very good.
You will feel influence.
We're going to feel very good and very strong.
You will feel influence.
You're right now not in a very good position. You've allowed yourself to be in a very bad position, and he happens to be right about it.
From the very beginning of the war.
You're not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having cards.
I'm not playing cards.
Right now, you don't.
You're
playing cards. You're playing cards. You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III.
It was a heated exchange in an Oval Office meeting as Trump pushed for Ukraine to make concessions and Zelensky sought security guarantees.
You think that if you will speak very loudly about the war, you can...
He's not speaking loudly. He's not speaking loudly. Your country is in big trouble.
Can I
Wait a
answer?
minute. No. You've done a lot of talking. Your country is in big trouble.
I know.
You're not winning. You're not winning this.
I
You have a damn good chance of coming out okay because of us.
Mr. President, we are staying in our country, staying strong from the very beginning of the war. We've been alone, and we are thankful. I said thanks
you haven't been
in this
alone.
cabinet,
You
and
haven't
not
been
only
alone.
in this cabinet.
We gave you, through
I
this
said
stupid president, $350 billion.
You voted
we gave
for
you
your
military equipment, and your
voted
men
for
are
your
brave,
president.
but they had to use our military.
Yes. What about
if you didn't have our military equipment,
if
you didn't have our military equipment, this war would have been over in 2 weeks.
In 3 days, I heard it from Putin. In 3 days. This is something
Maybe
new.
less.
The visit was supposed to end with a deal over rare minerals, but the planned signing was canceled, as was a press conference. Tension never subsided. The vice president got involved numerous times.
You should be thanking the president for trying to bring an end to this conflict.
Have you ever been to Ukraine that you say what problems we have?
I have been to.
Come once.
I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring people, you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. President. Do you disagree that you've had problems bringing people into your military? And do you think that it's respectful to come to the Oval Office of the United States of America and attack the administration that is trying to prevent the destruction of your country?
But Zelensky left the White House shortly after the meeting ended.
Following the heated exchange, Trump took to his social media platform saying President Zelensky disrespected the U.S. and isn't ready for peace if America is involved. Zelensky also posted online thanking the president for the visit and his support. Jeremy Sharon, CTV News, Ottawa.
All right, stay tuned. I'll be right back with a look at the weekend weather. But first, as we head to break, a look at today's closing market numbers.